Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS preview for the Zurich Classic. We've got ourselves a unique field, a different format for this week, which means some extra juice that we can squeeze out of these DFS contests, especially with some of the overlay that I think we might be potentially seeing. But here in this video, going to break down how this week is going to work from the format perspective, but more importantly, the golf course, and then some of my top plays towards the top and bottom of the Draftkings pricing board to give you a few building blocks to build your lineups around. So with a ton of info to hop into, let's go ahead and just dive right on in. We'll go ahead and start off this video with a look at the course. So over here on the key stats tab, we'll go through these in a few minutes here, but we've got ourselves TPC Louisiana, which is on the longer side for Pete Dye golf courses, right around 7,400 yards. Now, usually it's set up a little bit shorter than that. In fact, last year, the average was closer to 72.5 in terms of distance, but in most circumstances, you're looking at a course where it's not really about off the tee play, as most Pete Dye golf courses are, right? They're much more centered around that second shot. So no surprise, you can see shots gained approaches there, number one. And then outside of that, I'm looking at scoring stats, whether it's shots gained putting, looking at some of the better players on this POA Tribulus Overseed, which is once again the green surface of the week, or birdie or better, opportunities gained, par 5 scoring, all of the stats to get to a super low score. Because if you aren't familiar with the format, which kind of goes hand in hand with these stats here, it's going to be best of all for rounds 1 and 3, and then alternate shot for rounds 2 and 4. So after rounds 1 and 2, the top 33 teams and ties are going to make it to the weekend, which is a relatively strict cut. There are 79 teams, and then only the top 33 are going to make it. So 6 of 6 percentage tends to be exceptionally low at this event, not only because of the low percentage of teams making it, but also because you're dealing with a highly volatile event, extremely high variance event here with this team play format. So after the first 2 days, they have the cut, they go right back to best ball. But the reason why we're looking at the scoring stats is that the best ball portion tends to be the most important portion, particularly for getting your guys through the cut. If you're not familiar with best ball, both players in a pairing are going to play their own ball, and then afterwards, whoever has the best score on all 18 holes is going to have their score counted. So on hole number 1, if both players make a birdie, well, you'll have a birdie down. But let's say if player A makes a birdie, player B makes a bogey, well, don't have to worry about that bogey, right? They're going to count the birdie for the hole, and you're going to see guys shoot something like 7, 8 under on average, if not closer to 12, 13 under on the better side, shooting into the 50s. So I say that that's the most important round, because if you have two players that are hyper aggressive, can go out there, are high birdie or better percentage, high opportunities gained sort of players, go out there, make those 10, 12 birdies. Well, they're going to have a really good chance of making the cut, just holding on in the alternate shot format, which of course is a lot more difficult. Over in that spectrum, you're dealing with both players playing the same ball, which is an added little twist to this, right? These guys have to get used to using a different golf ball in a lot of circumstances, but also it's extremely difficult because you don't have that insurance. Every single shot counts. Players are going to rotate, taking turns hitting the ball until they finish a specific hole, and they're also going to alternate who hits a tee shot every single hole. So it's extremely difficult compared to the best ball format. So that's why I say the best ball is a little bit more important, because you're not going to see nearly as much scoring when it comes over there to alternate shot. So your fantasy scoring, the guys that are going out there scoring 120, 150 points on a week like this, which you'll see with all the birdies to be had, it's going to come on the best ball side. So you want guys that can take advantage of that. So with the modeling, that's what I'm looking at. Shots gained putting again on POA. Around the green, essentially non-existent, right? I'm not worried about saving par when you're there with best ball. And again, number 1, shots gained approach, which shouldn't surprise most of you out there for a Pete Dye golf course. So getting to the projections, we're going to take a look at some of the modeling on here. You can see I have everything on here, nothing blacked out. As per usual, right, we'll have ownership on here in a few days. We'll have the rest of the player pool filled out. Just a few early leans on here that we're going to talk through together. But if you want all of that, ownership when it's posted, my entire player pool, that of course will be on the Patreon page. But for now, let's focus on the top end of the board, where these top 2 groups, the $10,100 Cantlay Shoffley group, and then $10,900 Homakawa group, as they've called themselves, are the the two super groups. And at this point, I think I'm going to play both of them. I've seen some early ownership projections around the industry, right close to like 25 to 30% there with the top group. This Homa Morikawa group isn't getting nearly as much steam, but it's still getting their fair amount of ownership. They're just so much better than everyone else. And even though they are also a lot more expensive than everyone else, I think it's worth investing into. And if you were to play 50% of both groups there, I think you'd get at least enough leverage to both of them to feel pretty solid about it. And sure, that would leave you away from a lot of the teams below them, but just when I'm looking at the talent gap difference, the modeling of course has these two, 1 and 2. You look at the projections, right, they're up there in the 70s. Everyone else is down at the mid 60s pretty much at best. Made cut percentage for the team, you can see 78% for that top group, despite being one of the harder cuts to make in all of golf, believe it or not. 68.84%, right? Another extremely high percentage for this sort of field. They're worth being chalk. They're worth the price tag to me. So early in the week, again, before I've ran my own ownership projections, I'm going to be playing both of those super groups. So you're going to have to ask yourself whether you want to go all in on one, right? Whether you want to split it down the middle like I am, or completely avoid them and take that game theory approach, which I could see doing out there on a week as volatile as this. But in the past, we have seen these super groups perform particularly well, and it makes sense. You may say, oh, with this format, a lot of it comes down to luck, right? Cantlay and Xander can both shoot 5 under par. If they do it on opposite holes, it could be 10 under for the best ball format. If they make all their birdies on the same hole, it could be 5 under par, right? And they could get completely shafted out of having a really good round. So there is that luck aspect to it. But when you have two really good players on the same team, with the Homa and Morikawa group, and then, sure, there's some guys up here, right? You can include two studs in the same group, right? Siwoo, Ju Young, Burns, and Horschel when he's typically playing well, right? We would throw into that same conversation. But you get down here to the 8 and 7Ks, and it gets real ugly quick. So these guys usually have an anchor on the team, and, these top two super teams are exactly that, right? Super team, dream teams, if you want to put it that way. And if the ownership gets to like 35% on them, 30% for the Homa Morikawa group, then maybe I rethink it. But at least what I'm looking at right now has them at a respectable ownership level. It's something that I'm going to be willing to get leverage to. Outside of that, you've got this Sungjae Keith Mitchell group, which of course just feels a little bit expensive compared to the top groups, though there is about a $500 difference between that Homa group and then the M group. But I think a lot of people are just going to, side towards one of those top guys. So there's going to be some leverage to be had. I'd say the same thing with the Suh and Thagala group here. They also seem a little bit expensive, particularly because they're one spot higher than what you have with Suh, Siwoo and Ju Young. Also, Sam Burns and Horschel, who have had so much success at this golf course. They feel a little bit expensive. So if you're looking for leverage, I think these two groups are where you're going to get it, right? You might even get single-digit ownership on those two groups, which for just a 79 player pool, just to give you guys an idea, right? Your average ownership's like right around 8%. Getting a single digit owned player up here in the 10K range should be really hard to come by. So you're looking at extremely easy spots to leverage that at this point I'm not sure if I'm going to get to. But if ownership is going to polarize and you're going to get 30-35% on those top two, these sort of plays could be like 5-6% owned. It could just be gold mines in those large field GPPs. So we're going to have to keep an eye on them. Moving down into this 9K range, we have Siwoo and Ju Young, who I absolutely love. They're another core play for me on top of the Cantlay and Xander up top. And I guess the reason why I made them a core play, just to differentiate this between them and then the Max Homa and Morikawa group, it would be the track record, right? Obviously have won this event, are, in scorching hot form, both respectively. Morikawa and, Homa there, a little bit sketchy form. So that's why I made that distinction. This Siwoo Ju Young group, you have two players that fit this golf course perfectly, right? Pete Dye golf course is about being positional off the tee. Having distance is great and all, but they've got the iron play I'm looking for. And then on this surface, you can see both their killers, right? Gainer for Siwoo, which compared to his baseline is a huge positive, and then a positive for Ji Young Kim too. So another group that I think just the talent level is there, right there in the 9K range, fairly priced. I think should be priced higher than Sungjae and Keith Mitchell, higher certainly than somebody like Justin Suh and Sahith Theegala. So the ownership's going to be there, right? Because they're a little bit cheaper, They have a 9 next to their name rather than that 10. That psychological difference is going to, believe it or not, put a few more people onto this group. So if you're looking for an ownership pivot, don't be getting here, right? Don't be taking them as your source of leverage, but definitely a play that I'll be plugging into quite a few lineups. This Horschel and Burns group has had a lot of success in the past, but usually Billy Horschel's coming in with better form. In fact, I went back, looked at the leading in form last year, was making almost every single cut, had a few top 20 finishes. This time around is pretty much missed cut after missed cut. If we go ahead down, look at it, wrist cut, 52nd, another missed cut over there, and hasn't really had a top end finish for quite a while, at least 3 months. So $9,500. You have to be able to take a chance on this group if you're willing to play them, but at least I think they're going to be low owned, right? A few sources around the industry don't seem to agree. They still have them getting some steam, but just based on that form for Horschel, I feel like there's going to be enough people that avoid them that get to the Siwoo Jian group, which again, I admit, guys, I think they're going to get quite a bit of ownership, or even this Wyndham and Bo Hostler group down here. Wyndham's been really good at this event in the past. That maybe we get respectable ownership number here, like maybe right around 15%. And they end up becoming a solid GPP play. Moving down into this AK range, we're not going to talk about everybody. I do like Kurt Kitayama and Taylor Montgomery quite a bit. These two are familiar with each other, play all the time over there in Las Vegas. Another group that I think skill set wise really matches up. You've got an elite ball striker in Kurt Kitayama matched up with an elite putter, maybe the best putter in the world in Taylor Montgomery, who on the surface gains over a stroke and a half on the Poa Trivialis overseed. So if Kurt's throwing darts out there, an alternate shot, they're staying on script. Taylor Montgomery is just going to be making all of those birdie putts. And then you also have Kurt Kitayama, a high birdie percentage player, matched up with Taylor Montgomery, who's a top 5 player on tour when it comes to birdie or better percentage. So two aggressive players that I think in the best ball format can absolutely kill it. So yeah, I think the ownership might be there on them as well. But again, another group that I think it's warranted on, and that I'll be plugging in, just differentiating elsewhere with my GPP lineups. As AK range gets a little sketchy, this is where you start to have the guys that are anchors kind of ruining groups. Like Tom Hoge, if he was with anybody super respectable, I would love this group. But, Harris English, he's not horrible. He hasn't been doing anything of late. So if you're looking for recent form, it's not going to be there. But long-term pedigree, I'll likely be playing this Harris English group because of his long-term sample size, and then hoping that Tom Hoge can throw some darts out there and Harris can make a few putts. This Taylor Moore Neesmith group would have been a superstar group at, I'd say, 6 months ago when Matthew Neesmith was on top of the golf world. He was finishing top 10 like every other event. The guy was making like every cut, and now he's number 131 in recent form ranking. Just atrocious, the fall off that he's had. If you're looking at long-term stuff, kind of like a Harris English, you might get there as well. I'm a little bit more bullish on this Hoagie group, I do have to say, but the same idea there. Adam Hadwin, Nick Taylor, I am playing. This is all about the numbers, right? The numbers love them. They're my number 9 ranked play over here. So something worth noting is I have everything separated by group on here. You can see kind of like bolded off right from each other over there. We have the group number next to them. Their team rank, Adam Hadwin and Nick Taylor, is number 9, despite being number 15 in pricing. So quite a discrepancy there. Both of them are positives on this Poa Trivialis overseed. And if you take a look at the shots gained metrics, let's just zoom in, right? So take a look at the last 12 measured rounds. Where are they at here? What's their price tag? They are $8,500, a little bit more expensive than I remembered. Yeah, the pricing gets wonky quickly, guys. The talent level drops up super quickly. You can see, right, Hadwin's losing on approach. Kind of does that, right? He's inconsistent with the approach play, but outside of that, both players pretty much on brand. Nick Taylor's been lighting it up. You can see gaining across all 4 categories. And Adam Hadwin just a few months ago, not as far or as steep of a drop off as somebody like a Matthew Neesmith, but he was also right top 10 player, top 15 player with the shots gained ball striking for 3-4 months. I'm willing to bet on his long-term skill set as opposed to what we've seen maybe over that last 12 or last 24 rounds sample size. Sometimes we got to take a step back, look at the bigger picture, and guys like Adam Hadwin, Harris English are better players than I think a lot of the casuals or people that are maybe new to DFS are going to give them credit for. So another group that I'll be playing for sure. Now getting into the 7K range, you can see the Fitzpatrick brothers are there. They're interesting. I have to say Alex Fitzpatrick, huge unknown. He's on the Challenge Tour, so certainly a much lower level player than everyone else around him. But you got Matthew Fitzpatrick in the group, right? Half of their production right there, and he's $8,200, right? Winner last week. Put some respect on his name out there. Beat my boy Spieth out there, which of course I was rooting for my boy Spieth, but respect to him. Absolutely great tournament from both of them. And matched up with Fitz, who, from what I hear, is a fantastic ball striker. So we'll have to see. I might be playing those two. Even with the huge unknowns around the second brother, Alex, there. This 7K range is extremely weak. Guys like Thomas Dietrich, Victor Perez are a dime a dozen. These guys, $7,900, are significantly better players than everyone else. Victor Perez doesn't play much on the PGA Tour, but on the European Tour has been dominating, kind of on the same level as like a Ryan Fox, Robert McIntyre over there. And then you have Dietrich, who's been, especially early this season, was just a made-cut machine, has still been a solid player over his last few starts. Over there at Corrales Putakania had his best performance, especially over the last 2 months there with the top 5. And it was his home course, so he did have that going for him here. But the shots gained metrics over the last 24 rounds are respectable enough on both of them to make them a play in my book. So Victor Perez, most of these are the PGA Tour. His European Tour stuff, he's gaining across all 4 categories. And that honestly, you got to take it with a grain of salt because it's weaker field, but still, you can just tell, right? He's kind of on that same, tier as some of those other, stud European Tour guys, and they come over here and they finish top 25, right? Nico Hogard, right? Perfect example of that. Victor Perez is just as good, if not better, than a Nico Hogard. So Thomas Dietrich, same kind of thing, right? Of late, he's been a little bit inconsistent from tee to green, but we know what he's capable of. He came over here, he was gaining like half a stroke per round in all 3 of those categories. So those are the kind of guys I'm looking for, just high talent level teams compared to the rest of the guys. Like, right, Zach Johnson, Steve Stricker, $100 less than what you have with Victor Perez up there. Ryan Gerard, Ben Griffin, another group I'm getting to for talent level. Number 14 in my team rankings, despite being number 27 there in the pricing. These guys, both decent on Poetrivolous. You can see Gerard, not a massive sample size, so I'm not worrying about that much too much. But if you look at the ball striking stats, especially early, you can see Gerard still gaining 0.7 shots gained per round on approach. He was getting like 1.5 shots per round after his first 2 events that were recorded on tour. Ben Griffin, never going to game at the approach play. From what I hear, that's a huge weakness of his. But everything else for Ben Griffin is outstanding. Around the green might be the best player on tour. So yeah, a group that I think from the skill set perspective, right? If Gerard's going to miss greens, Griffin's going to go out there and bail him out. If Gerard's going to go out there and throw darts, well, then you have Ben Griffin just making every single birdie putt. So I'm liking those holes. The other 9 holes, well, we're going to have to see, right? They're going to have to figure those out. I do like this Will Gordon, Davis Thompson group. They're going to be another featured group I talk up here. And $7,600, they're extremely familiar. They play all the time at Sea Island, both of them, part of the plantation course there, and play all the time together. They have the familiarity, but the skill sets are exact same too. Extremely long off the tee, bombers that are just ball striking, tee to green phenoms. Both of them approach play is going to be outstanding. Long term, you're going to see these guys for a very long time. They're going to make a lot of cuts. They're going to finish in the top 25 extremely often because of the floor that comes with that ball striking ability. And the fact that, they have that connection, I think means something, right? Let's go to the top, right? Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele, right? Winners. They just print money at this event over the last few events. They love playing with each other. They love vacationing with each other. Davis Thompson, Will Gordon, they have that same kind of connection. I can just tell you that. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. We'll have to see if that translates to good golf. I know with the ball striking, all that is just to die for with those 2 players. Akshay and Harry Hall, love myself some Akshay, but the numbers love this group too, which is another reason to get there. Harry Hall's been a huge surprise. Has played a lot better than I thought he would. The putter's the huge X factor. One of the best putters on the PGA Tour. Akshay's cooled down a little bit. He was elite with the ball striking about a month ago when we were looking at these shots gained metrics. Is now just slightly over the positive, but hopefully he can bounce back. We know the talent level's there. We've been tracking him for quite some time. MJ Daffy, Eric Van Rooyen, love getting to these 2. Obviously, compatriots from down there in South Africa. MJ Daffy's been one on a heater, right? We really zoom in on his metrics. Yeah, MJ. Gaining in both tee to green categories, right around a half a stroke per round in both of them. Eric Van Rooyen's the anchor. right? We put that in quotes here. And sure, it's the recent form, but EVR long term, we know who he is, right? Great ball striker, extremely inconsistent with the putter, but can get hot there. Daffy, another one of those players, and he's been hot with the putter of late. So I like the pairing. They should be familiar. I know they play a lot of practice rounds together. I've seen pictures from a lot of the Twitter folks out there of these two together. And number 10 in the team rankings, right? Another one that, on a week like this, you got to pick your angle, right? And my angle is just to take the teams with the highest talent level compared to their price, especially the ones that are low owned. And I think this is one that's not going to get a ton of steam. So in large field GPPs, this one's definitely viable for some of that leverage. Down here towards the bottom of the board, there's not a ton of guys we're going to talk up. I mean, there's, Mark Hubbard, who played well last week, and then Ryan Brehm, right? There's Ben Taylor, who's been at least prior to a month from now, before now, I should say, was great in terms of modeling with Callum Turan, right? Who was another one of those players last year, right? Who in the models absolutely loved. Also compatriots that I think might gel well that you could take a chance on. But then you have like Luke Donald and Eduardo Molinari down here. Guys that I like getting to, right, are the ones that the numbers like, once again, right? Just the best groups in terms of talent level, which would be like a Benny Ann and S.H. Kim. Right, guys that are making cuts that the ball striking metrics have been there for. We go to the last 24 measured rounds. Let's see. Gaining approach, right, for Benny Ann. You can see SH gaining off the tee, gaining with the putter. You can see both of them gaining significantly, in the shots gained total category. Guys around them, a lot of them are losing, right, over the last 24 rounds. In fact, most of them are, right? You have a group where both of them are gaining. So, like, these are the situations I'm talking about, right? Just, if I hate to make it this easy, I hate to make DFS this easy. This is a week where people are just going to be borderline lazy out there. If a group like this, you can easily get leverage on them, then by all means go out there and do so, right? So at least as of right now, I'm proceeding with that idea. If you're going down towards this 6K range, proceed with caution, right? Like Michael Kim, Sung Yul No are a group with a decent talent level, obviously being carried mostly by Michael Kim, who's just been ball striking the crap out of it of late. You can see here gaining in the tee to green categories. He's capable of being even better off the tee and on approach, so I really like how this sets up for him. Outside of that, though, it's crapshoot. There's nothing down here I love. I guess $6,300. There's one group I have considered. Actually, is he 64? No, there's $6,300. I considered the Ramey trainer group. That was one of them that I considered. I considered this Russell Knox, Brian Stewart group up here at $6,400. But this Hoffman Watney group, just, it sounds like their kind of event. Experienced. They played this a bunch, right? Charlie Hoffman's actually been ball striking a lot better of late than he has for the last year. And Nick Watney, he pops like once, twice a year. And at this kind of price tag, I mean, you're priced around guys that have just been in absolutely atrocious form. You got to get behind something. I mean, even this Aaron Baddeley, Harrison Endicott group, right, compatriots, both of them have actually been playing decent over here in 2023 you could take. But it's a tough scene. There's just not a lot of groups down here with a ton of talent level. And I'm cycling, or at least I'm trying to, circle and cycle a lot of my lineups with these sort of players, right? Cycle in Michael Kim group, where we have the ball striking. Sung Yul No is a pretty good ball striker too. Really straight off the tee, which is going to help him at this Pete Dye golf course with a bunch of water. Obviously Benny Ann, SH Kim group, right? That is significantly better than all the other guys around them. It's a week just not to get too cute with it. There's going to be some overlay. There's going to be people that are just taking it a little bit too lazy out there. Take the highest talent level groups. Obviously, mix in a few little pivots when you need to for those large field GPPs. And you should have a pretty good time out there and hopefully take down some contests. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for the DFS preview. Before you hop on out of here, go ahead, comment down below who you've got winning this week. And make sure they're not in the 10K range, right? So no Patrick Cantlay, Xander Schauffele group, no Homakawa group out there. For me, I'm going to really try and, shoot down the board there a little bit. We'll go with the Davis Thompson, Will Gordon group. We'll go with the Sea Island boys out there. Two absolute flushers of the golf ball. Two of the longest players that you have on the whole PGA Tour. But go ahead and let me know your thoughts, right? You don't have to be as ambitious as me. Don't got to go down there to the 7K range, but let's stay out of the 10K range here for once. But I appreciate all the support here, guys. Smash that like button on your way out. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do that as well. For all of the ownership updates, for all of the player poll when it's posted there, make sure to check out the Patreon page. There's a link in the description to that. And of course, we're going to be going live on Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern time, touching on all of your questions, whether there's going to be any sort of weather edge, which is highly unlikely for this sort of event. It's just so wacky that I don't think we want to be overthinking it too much, but we'll talk about all your questions. We'll go through props if we have them on PrizePicks, which I'm expecting them to be posted for. We can talk about live props if we need to over there. We know we have that event this weekend, and we're going to go through all of the strategy that is necessary for this week, because I'm imagining there's going to be a lot of mega chalk and quite a bit of mega chalk that I'm playing, right? There's two groups up top. A few of the guys there, like Tom Kim, Siwoo Kim there, guys that I think are going to get a lot of steam, and we're going to have to be mixing in some pivots that take care of that. So make sure to stop on by for the live stream. Again, that'll be tomorrow evening, Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, and we'll go over your questions there as well. But until then, best of luck. Go out there, cash out in those GPPs this week, bring home a few outright bets while you're at it, and let's get this cash.